Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Tuesday, the 7th of December. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this Tuesday morning by Joshua Barrie in place of Johnny McFarlane, who's earned a well-deserved rest. How are you doing, Joshua, after your time off?
Oh, well, Derek, glad to be back. I had to take all my time off really in November this year, so it was a quiet November, but looking forward to lots of football over December. But no, a good time off. Obviously, kept up with the games and kept up with what you guys were doing, and it seemed to be a pretty profitable week again for Rangers. So glad to be back and looking forward to the game on Thursday, and obviously a huge game on Sunday.
Oh yeah, most definitely. As ever, folks, remember if you're watching us on YouTube, just hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Thousands of you are doing so, so thank you very much for doing just that and supporting ourselves at the Rangers Review. And also to subscribe to the Rangers Review website as well. It's rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. Just £2.99 a month to support top quality journalism covering the club you love. So go check it out. Good morning to Aldo, as ever, getting in touch. And Gordon, also all the way from Thailand, no less. Far exotic, more exotic than where we're situated, Joshua, that's for sure. Let's talk about the main issues then this morning. You can see in the title, folks, Borna Barisic is there. There were reports from down south suggesting that Aston Villa were keen on bringing the Croatian down to Villa Park to team up once again with Steven Gerrard. However, it's believed that Barisic would snub a move to England in favour of extending his career at Ibrox. Now, we've later been told that there's no such links or truth in the reports, but just playing devil's advocate, if it is true, Joshua, it's good news because Borna Barisic has been one of the most improved players under Giovanni van Bronckhorst.
Yeah, and up until maybe a month ago, Derek, I think links to Borna Barisic wouldn't have been met with such disdain. And as you're saying, it does look like he wants to stay, but he's been so improved under Van Bronckhorst, and I think that really is a good metaphor for a lot of the improvements that have happened since Gio's come in terms of tweaking player roles to suit their best qualities. Barisic, as anyone who's watched Rangers over the past few games will know, is playing more of a support and arrive role, sometimes forming part of a back three and build up, not being tasked with as many one-on-one duels with the ball, but has been making a lot of really well-timed deep runs and deep overlaps, and that's been really effective. I think Livingston aside, when he let a couple of crosses in, he's been much better in that regard, and he's looked a lot better. And I think, Barisic, since he came to Rangers, has went through these spells, if you like. You remember, Derek, it took him about a long time to get up to speed in the first instance, really, until he scored that free kick at St Mirren, wasn't it? But I think he's evidently a player that really enjoys playing at Rangers, and you do see that with a lot of players. But I think Barisic more than most enjoys the atmosphere, enjoys his song being sung, really appreciates the fans, and gets what playing for Rangers is all about. So I can definitely see him as someone that would want to, at 29, commit a good few more years to Rangers. And as I say, I think playing that role inside allows him to show his qualities in the ball, and it's great when he's on a good run of form, because I think there's few players in that squad that you can tell kind of as definitively he's having a bit of a hard spell. And with Barisic, I think you think back to some of the games in Europe, the Bromby game, for example, where he played that back pass and in general just had a really difficult evening. I think he certainly didn't start the season as he would have hoped, but I think this role change has been really, really beneficial for him, and that's excellent to see.
Yeah, to sort of illustrate his improvement, folks, I'd urge you to go onto our Twitter site, Rangers Review 55. We have a little illustration on there. Stevie Clifford from Four Lads had a dream, asked to see the radar of Borna before and after the management change, and it's quite startling to see it in those two radars from StatsBomb. So go check it out if you haven't already done so. Interesting question that's come in here from John Dooley. Joshua, I want to touch on it. Good morning from Frankfurt, no less. Do you think there'll be big bids for Joe Aribo coming in January? I personally think it's a possibility given his current form. I think he's playing out his skin at the moment. I think it's an inevitability that teams down south in the Premier League will want to test the water and try and prize Joe Aribo back down south. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I hope not, Derek, but I think it's, you certainly look at that squad at the moment and you look at which player is arguably the best on current form, and would be, Aribo, I think, has 18 months left in his deal, 19 months probably at time of speaking. And he's certainly a player that, technique-wise, unquestionably could go down to the Premiership. And I think the question with Aribo has always been his end product, is his... again, in many ways, I think Aribo for the first half, for Gerrard's part of the season that he was there, did a lot of really good things. And often, if you remember, the side looked really good box to box in that time, for which Aribo was probably the biggest cause. But it was just that final third that was elusive, that was a little bit missing. And I think increasingly we're starting to see that from him. And when he adds that to the credentials he already has, you remember again I think it was the Bromby game where Gerrard then spoke about him playing angry and evidently thought that was something that he needed to do to get the best out of his abilities. I think he's certainly someone that will go down and play in the Premiership, but you'd like to have maybe another couple of seasons out of him. That being said, Derek, I think if he continues his form this season, it will certainly be his best season at Ibrox, and might be just attract too much attention for him to remain for another year. I'd be surprised if it was in January, though. That's the only thing I'd say. I'd think it would be more likely that it would be a deal that happens in the summer. Yeah,
I think Aribo at this moment in time is by far the best midfielder in Scotland. There's no question. In terms of, he spoke after the game on Saturday, Joshua, and said that Van Bronckhorst wants the players running at defences to cause mayhem. What do you make of it? What do you make of those comments? I've got to say, I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think there's lots of discussion at the moment, obviously, with the differentiation between the team now and under Gerrard, and obviously it's more exciting than it's been all season, and there's certain tweaks. I think it's in particular as we spoke about, Barisic tucking in a little bit and allowing Kent or Sakala to provide a one-on-one threat out wide. There's lots of little tweaks that I think are proven really beneficial, given how teams have set up against Rangers to counteract the Christmas tree formation. And I think these two midfield runners is one of those elements. You look at Aribo and Arfield. Aribo, I don't think he really under Gerrard would run beyond as much, and you've seen that again a lot at Livingston. There's one run over the top where it was actually really unfortunate to not get a shot away. But when you've got those two midfield runners off the back of a midfield, combined with the extra width that's being opened up, let's not forget that they're playing in wider spaces because you've got Sakala glued to the touchline at the weekend, as opposed to him tucking in, and Borna Barisic, who isn't going to beat two men and unleash a shot like Sakala would. He's instead a little bit deeper instead of providing the width on the left. So I think all of those things come together to allow the team to play in wider spaces, and the intelligent movement of Arfield, and I guess the whole package of Aribo makes them so difficult to play against. This slightly deeper role, fullbacks as well, allows that. So there's that saying that there's always piano players and piano carriers in the team. I'm not really sure who the carriers are at the moment, because there seems to be a lot of people that are trying to get involved in the final third, and that's excellent. And I think the balance has changed, but I think it's been really successfully fine-tuned so far to allow the likes of Aribo and Arfield in games where Rangers do look for more 4-3-3 to go beyond. And Arfield, we've always known he's always done that at Rangers. But it's interesting that he's been one of the players that's kind of been given a lot of responsibility under Van Bronckhorst. I don't know how many of the other midfielders can do that role. I don't know if, for example, Bakuna has that ability as a runner. He's far more of a ball carrier. So it'll be interesting as well if maybe that's an area that Rangers look in the market to, because they've got a lot of number sixes that could play as 2 6s. If you think of like Ryan Jack and even Stephen Kelly, not that many more that can play in that role. So yeah, taking the shackles off, completely agree, and it's just been really enjoyable to watch, Derek. And I was watching the game back yesterday, and Sakala could have had three, it's so exciting to see him in those positions. And again, that's the type of thing when you allow someone to build momentum off the wing, when you allow, and sometimes it's just simple. I was reading Pep Guardiola talking about it at the weekend, about why he kept his wingers wide sometimes. He said, it's something I've always enjoyed since I was a kid. You know, the greatest tactical mind in the world, just kind of putting it as simply as that. And sometimes it is as simple as that, keeping your best one-on-one players and attacking players in the positions where they can really impact the game is proved really beneficial. And Aribo too is benefiting from the freedom and lack of structure in that midfield, as Johnny wrote about the other day in the site.
Yeah, a good evening to Roy Nelsons, who's got in touch from Malaysia, no less. Malacca loyal. Good to have you alongside us this morning, Roy, or this evening, as it is in Malaysia. Not jealous at all whatsoever. Some interesting comments coming in here. Aldo says Arfield has got a new lease of life under Gio. Sort of reiterating what you've been saying, Joshua. For me, he's been like Barisic. He's been integral, if you like, to this Rangers team under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst in the early stages. And for a player, I think I spoke to Johnny about this yesterday, for a player at the start of the season you felt would maybe be bit part, might get a cameo here or there, he's certainly fought hard and worked his way back into the side and has become a vital component, hasn't he?
Yeah, and you've seen that obviously in the I think it was the Motherwell game, the 6-1 game, where he came back in. It was only his second start of the season. And I think he's a player that is a real professional, given the fact that he's still running about as he is at 33. And that'll obviously have aided his role in the squad in that first 3 months where he wasn't playing as much, and it didn't look like he was maybe going to be involved as much. But in terms of his game intelligence, I mean, you think of the goal that always comes to mind, two goals, is the goal against Galatasaray last year, but also the goal where he combined with Hadji at Easter Road in the 2-2 draw last year. And his kind of third man runs off the shoulder, which Aribo does in a different way, but I guess to equal effect sometimes, are just so hard for midfielders to counteract, because if they drop in, it creates a space in front of them. If they don't, then it gives the defence a huge issue. So, again, it's one of those questions. Then, if Arfield's who takes his place and is one of the number 8s going forward, I would like to see Bakuna get a little bit more game time going forward. I've been interested that, well, maybe not. So, you know, he's not played much before Van Bronckhorst comes in. So maybe it is a case of Van Bronckhorst wanting to wait a few games. He's still only 4 games in, of course, before he throws Bakuna in. But I think with that freedom, we've seen against Ross County, you know, how effective he can be against the deep defence as well. So yeah, but huge I guess compliment to Scott Arfield that he's been tasked as one of the main men for Gio so early on. And I thought, again, he was really unlucky at the weekend there was a couple of moments in the first half where he just made such good runs. He obviously had that cutback for Aribo, which perhaps he should have went for himself. But again, and those two combining is a little bit reminiscent of the two fullbacks combining under Gerrard. I guess the two advanced number 8s running beyond will be a little bit of a defining feature of Van Bronckhorst against these deep defences. And it's all helped there by the fact they've got Glenn Kamara behind them, who is just quietly being excellent as ever. You know, does so much defensive work, is so good on the ball to move it forward quickly, and that allows Rangers to play with two attacking number 8s.
Yeah, he may very well get a chance on Thursday, to imagine Bakuna. Likewise, Scott Wright, who I wanted to touch on, Josh. I've got a piece out on the website this morning. It's causing a bit of debate because
that's what you love, Derek. You love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yanis Hadji, of course, over on that right-hand side. For me, he's more beneficial in a more central role on the right. He does a decent job, but his lack of pace is evident. Scott Wright came on at the weekend and he made an almost immediate impact. He skinned his man Marshall and made a beeline for the byline, and that's what he was looking to do throughout his time on the pitch. I'm hoping to see him in action on Thursday night, and given that Van Bronckhorst likes to play pretty much out-and-out wingers with Kent on one side, I would like to see Wright on the other side. What's your views on that?
Yeah, I'm a big Hadji fan, but I think he often does a lot of things that go under the radar. So what comes to mind immediately is against Hibs in that second half. He won a lot of fouls, but he received the ball a lot when it was tricky for Rangers to play forward. And I think What Hadji gives you in this setup is that he allows Tavernier to overlap because he comes in field, and obviously sometimes he does pick the ball up wide, and was pretty impactful out wide against Sparta Prague in Van Bronckhorst's first game. But then equally his lack of pace, I guess, in transitional moments if Rangers are trying to counter-attack is a little bit exposed. But yeah, I mean, I think Hadji Aribo Kent gives you a nice balance. I think Scott Wright is always kind of been, since he came in, the final ball away from being a nailed-on starter, because in terms of his play up to that point, there's not many criticisms you could put at him. You know, he's really good one-on-one. He's good with his back to goal. He really spins well, and I think that's why the 210s roll suited him. But I guess again, Derek, this is the good thing about it, is that is two completely different threats, really, that opponents have to worry about. I do think that Scott Wright deserves a run of games in the team. I think we've only seen that a couple of times where he's had more than 2 starts in a row, 3 starts in a row. But I think Hadji is one of these players that can be so quietly effective, but also can frustrate, because he does cause a fair few turnovers himself, where he'll maybe fall over the ball or get a little bit mixed up. But I think he can sometimes be a little bit of a victim of that, a victim of his own success, if you will. Aribo was the one I thought was going to play from that position under Van Bronckhorst, but he's really excelled in the middle. So yeah, it seems like Wright over Patterson will definitely be the kind of second choice for the moment, if you will, over there. What's interesting to me as well, Derek, is can Rangers then mirror what they've done on the left side and the right, and tuck Tavernier in, as Barisic has, allowed him to arrive late, put Nathan Patterson out wide. Who knows? But certainly he's much more of a possibility now than it did a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on this comment from Mark. It's an interesting one. Just going back, Arfield, Joshua, he's saying that he's given Ross Wilson something to think about with his contract coming to an end at the end of the season. Now, of course, the AGM was last week. Ross Wilson said that older players whose contracts were coming to an end would be assessed in the summer. He has given Ross Wilson something to think about, hasn't he? Because on current form, you wouldn't be opposed to extending that deal and getting him signed up for longer, would you?
Yeah, and I guess it's one of these things, Derek, where Arfield, I guess, would want to remain at Rangers. I don't think it's a case of in the last 5 months of his deal he's going to be looking elsewhere, as other players on in the final 6 months of their deal tend to do. So I guess a lot of factors will come into it. As we've said, Arfield really does seem to be quite the athlete and a model professional. So I don't think it'll be a case of can he play another year. Maybe it will, but I don't think so. And he's a leader in that dressing room, but equally, each team is a cycle, and sometimes you need to let players go after they've been at the club for 4 years and bring in someone that's 24 and can give the club 6-7 years. So yeah, as Mark says, it will be something that Ross Wilson, I'm sure, is thinking about, and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is too. But you've got someone else in that midfield, Stephen Davis, who came back to the club at 30, 33, 34, and is still up to this season. Last season was had one of the best seasons of his life. So sports science, I think, impacts the game to such a degree this year. These seasons that older players have much more of a chance. You look at the piece we did on Zone 7 recently, Derek, that spoke about how Rangers are minimising injuries with their use of AI. And I think all these things come into it with players like Arfield and Davis to manage their workload and make sure that they're not overdoing it. At this point in time, you wouldn't imagine that an extra year for Arfield will hurt. But as you, Sam Wilson, said at the AGM, I think the summer is probably the right time to visit that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that'll do us there. Thanks to everyone, as ever, for getting in touch with the comments. We really do appreciate it. And if you haven't already done so, just hit the subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. And remember to subscribe to the Rangers Review if you haven't already done so as well. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe, but only £2.99 a month to support top quality journalism covering the club you love. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow morning, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.